In the best of times, adoption can be a difficult road. Imagine what it's like to facilitate that journey during a pandemic. This morning, I'm joined by Nicole Witt from the Adoption Consultancy. Let's take a look. Good morning, Nicole. Welcome to Hometown Living.
Thanks so much for having me back.
So, adoption is a tricky road, a long road, an emotional journey in the best of circumstances. But during COVID, things have really kind of gotten changed up a little bit, haven't they?
They have, and different types of adoption have been affected differently. I work almost exclusively with private domestic adoption, which is probably the least affected, but international adoption, foster adoption, they have been affected much more significantly.
So if I'm a couple or maybe even a single person who's looking at adoption, should I shy away from it currently? Should I dive in whole hog?
Right.
What path should I take?
I say to dive in, jump in with both feet. Again, especially with private domestic adoption, adoptions are going forward. There are different pieces of it that have some delays or have some obstacles. So you might as well start now and just kind of, take one step at a time and address any of those obstacles as they arise. But people are, overcoming them and adoptions are happening.
So with the kind of adoptions that you deal with, are they mostly from the newborn, like a newborn adoption, or might I be able to adopt a 2 or 3 year old, a 4 year old, a 6 year old?
It's almost always a newborn adoption where the baby is placed with the adoptive parents directly upon discharge from the hospital. Every once
Hmm.
in a while, there's a situation with a slightly older child, but it's quite rare that, a birth mom would parent for any length of time and then choose to place her child for adoption. That almost always happens through the foster care system.
Sure, and that's not anything that's
No,
not something.
that's totally separate approach, right?
So with what you're typically like a typical journey for your client, compared to what it is now, is that maybe they wouldn't be able to go to the hospital and be a part of the birth, that kind of
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, that's one of the big things, not having that time in the hospital to connect with the expectant mom and with the baby and so on. In some instances, that's better for the expectant mom, right? Sometimes she wants that time by herself, but sometimes she really, wants that support there and she wants the agency personnel with her and so on. And obviously, the potential adoptive parents really want to be there. So that is one of the big changes, as is the travel aspect of things, although as things open up more, that's become less of a hurdle than it was a couple of months ago. And then the other big area is just building that relationship between the hopeful adoptive parents and the expectant mom. That, of course, needs to be done pretty much exclusively virtually these days
Oh,
versus, with some in-person interaction that there used to be before.
sure. And so, yeah, that I could see where that could be a stumbling block. You don't. It's not as easy to connect on Zoom or on Skype as far as like the chemical connection, right? Like
Right,
how you
exactly.
gel, right? So if people are, I know that I have friends who have adopted, and I know that that's been internationally and locally, and I know that it's always a journey for them and so emotional. If people are like thinking about going down the adoption path, how can they get in touch with you, and how can you help?
The best way to get in touch with me is right on the website or on Facebook. Both are under the adoptionconsultancy.com. And the way that consultants help is that I always tell people a quick way to get it is that we're kind of like a wedding planner for adoption, and we guide people step by step through the process. And really, my goal is to take as much of that stress out of the process for people as possible, especially these days with the unexpected hurdles that are coming up. I've been dealing with those every day for, the past 4 months plus. So people don't need to figure these things out all on their own. They can have experts help guide them through it.
Right. Why reinvent the wheel when you have it
Right.
all ready to go for us? I get that for sure.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that the people on the other end of that adoption are so grateful for your services and your ability to navigate that, because it is a tricky thing and it's such an emotional thing. So
It is. And it's overwhelming for people who, have never done it before, which is the vast majority of people who are adopting.
Right. Right. And so, there's so many children who deserve a good home. And so keep up the good work you're doing. And thank you so much for being with us this morning on Hometown Living.
No problem. Thank you.